Hey guys, this video is going to go over something called a systems of inequalities. So we're going to kind of start right where we left off after a quiz. This is lesson 931 from your math book. So if you can take notes in your notebook while you watch it, and while you're watching it, if you're confused on anything, just jot down your question and then please post it in the questions section in Schoology, and that way I can answer it. And I can even record a video or we can chat online if you don't understand how something works. All right, so first thing, in the past, earlier in the year, we worked with something called systems of equations. So a systems of equations was where I would give you an equation for like two lines. Maybe I'd give you y equals 2x plus 3 and y equals x minus 1. And we would want to know, where do those two lines cross? So I'm going to pause and just graph these real quick. Okay, so I quickly graph these. You guys know how to graph a line. This was the y-intercept. I did the blue line first. I started at 3, and then the slope was 2. So I went up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1, up 2 over 1. So I graphed that blue line. Then I went and graphed this equation. I started at -1, and then I went up 1 over 1 because the slope was 1. Then I went backwards 2, and then I got those two lines to cross. I'll just mark it in green right here. And the coordinate of that point, I already counted it, was -4, -5. Now that coordinate right there, that is the solution to this systems of equations. That's where those two lines crossed. Oopsie, I just kind of moved it. Now you could check to see if that was true by plugging it in, kind of doing a check. You could plug in a -4 right here for the x, and a -5 here, plug in a -4, -5 here. And if you work it out, let's just do the top one. So I get -5 equals, if I times this out, I get -8 plus 3. And I get -5 equals -5. So that one worked. Same thing down the second one. If I work this one out, -4 minus 1, I get -5 equals -5. So they both work. So this is a systems of equations. So we did that earlier in the year. All right, so now this time today we are going to learn how to graph a system of inequalities. All right, so first thing, the only thing that is different is instead of the equal signs, now I have these greater than or equal signs. So first thing you might notice is I graphed the two lines just like I did before. Now I made them both solid because they both had this equal sign. All right, now here's what my goal is. I want to figure out what points will work in both of these. Now there's multiple points. So basically I want to know, like, does 10, 0, does that work in both of those? Or does down here, do these points work in both of these? Or do these points work in both of these, or these? So basically it's split into 4 regions. I'm just going to number them. So here's region 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay, I want to find the points that will work in both of these inequalities. So to do that, I'm going to have to do a test point. All right, so just like we did in the past, you need to show me what you're doing for your test point. So I'm going to just put test point, and I'm going to start by just picking a point from region 1. I'm going to choose 0, 10 right here. So 0, 10. Okay, I'm going to plug it in both inequalities. So I'm going to start by plugging it in the top one. I'm going to write 10. Is that less or greater than or equal to 0 plus 4? Well, 10 is definitely bigger than 4. So that one works. So now I'm going to plug it in the bottom one. Again, I'm going to put 10. Is that bigger than or equal to -2 times 0 minus 1? Well, if I do that, I get 10 is bigger than or equal to -3. That also works. So these points up here in region 1, they work. Points in all of these points up here are going to work in both of these inequalities. Now I could pick something in region 2 to test. I just happened to pick the right region to start with here, but if I would have picked something in region 2, let's do 10, 0. Okay. So if I did 10, 0 instead, I would plug in for the y, 0. Is that bigger than or equal to 10 plus 4? Well, already it doesn't take that much time. I can see 0 is not bigger than 14. So I already knew region 2 does not work. Okay, same thing, I could pick something in 3, 4. Only one of these regions will work. So now what you do is you are going to shade region 1. These are the points that work. So I'm just shading everything up here. Okay, remember these lines should have arrows on them too, but this is the section that works. So this is called a systems of inequalities. And again, we need to find the points that will work in both of these inequalities that'll make them true. And it's everything in region 1. And remember, the points on the lines, if I would test these points here too on the red or the blue line here, these would all work too. All of these points right up there. Okay, but these points down here would not work. These would not work. Okay, only these ones and these ones and this would work in both of them. That is the systems of inequalities. All right, so I just showed you how to do that one way. Now there's also another way to do it that some of you might like. So I'm going to show you another way to do the same type of problem, but I'm just going to do it with a different problem. So I'm going to start by graphing this top one, okay, right here. So again, I see the y-intercept's 1, so I'm going to put a 1 on the graph, and then the slope is just a 1, right, because there's a 1 by the x, so up 1, over 1. Okay, I'm just going to plot that quickly. Okay, you can kind of see the pattern. Not too hard to see. Now, again, I usually make it take up the whole graph. Okay, I also notice right away it's a dotted line, so I'm just kind of, it's hard for me to do this on my recording program, but that's a dashed line. Okay, and I put my arrows. Now, here's what you can do. Right away with just that equation or that inequality, I'm going to do a test point. Okay, I'm not even going to worry about the other one. So this is a way you can do it. So I'm going to test 10 comma 0. That's way over here. Okay, I'm going to plug that in in this one right here. So 10 comma 0. If I plug that in, I will plug in 0. Is that bigger than 10 plus 1? That is not true. So the points down here do not work in this green inequality. So it's going to be the points up here. So I'm going to grab my highlighter, and I'm just going to shade that in green. Okay, so you can see my shading green. So the points above the line work here. Okay, so now here's your second step. We are going to graph. I'm going to use a different color. I'll use yellow this time. I am going to graph this one. Okay, now this is a parabola. You guys should know that's a parabola. It's kind of just the basic parabola. If you're not sure what it looks like, it's like plus 0x plus 0, but the y-intercept would be 0. Okay, and if I graph this, it actually is going to look kind of, I'll just make a table of points. You can always make a table of points if you're not sure. If I do 1 squared, that's going to give me 1. 2 squared is 4. 3 squared is 9. So I'm going to go 1 comma 1, 2 comma 1, 2, 3, 4, 3 comma 9, way up here. Okay, and if this is a parabola, it's going to be kind of the same if I square the other ones. So I'm going to come over to, okay, so this is just the basic parabola. Now this one is going to be solid. So let's connect it, draw arrows. Okay, and I just drew it in yellow. And again, if you needed to, you could add points to this table. Negative 1 squared is 1. Negative 2 squared is 4. Negative 3 squared is 9. Okay, so there's my parabola. Now, I'm going to only look at that yellow parabola. Ignore everything in green. And I'm going to do a test point. Okay, so I'm going to test, let's test 10 comma 0 in this one too. So I'm going to test 10 comma 0 in this bottom inequality, this one right here. So I'm going to take, instead of a y, I'm going to put a 0 because I'm testing 10 comma 0. So I'm going to say 0, is that less than or equal to 10 squared? Well, 0 is definitely less than or equal to 100. So the points out here for my yellow one do work. Okay, so it's going to be outside of the parabola because I had two options. I could test inside the parabola or outside. So outside of the parabola works. So I'm going to grab my yellow highlighter, okay, and I'm going to highlight outside the parabola. Okay, so kind of just watch. This is outside the parabola. So is this. Okay, outside the parabola. Now, I just highlighted in green and yellow. Now, to see where it works for both of them, it's actually the overlap. So where did I highlight for both of them? Okay, well, I highlighted above the green line, but outside the parabola. So I have to be above this green line. I'm going to highlight in pink, but outside the parabola. These are the points that will work in both. It's kind of the area where you have double shading. Okay, so I just highlighted. Any of these points over here are going to work in both of those inequalities. Now, you might be wondering, what about the points on this line right here, where I'm tracing it with my red pointer? Those do not work because it's a dashed line. How about these points right here on this parabola, right up until here? These ones do work because it's a solid line. So these ones will work. Right here will not work. And everything in here will work. So that's the second way that you can do a systems of inequalities. All right, so now that you guys saw that, you get to choose kind of which way you want to use. So I'll just give you a quick example. So again, if I was graphing a systems of inequalities, and let's say I had a absolute value one. Remember, absolute value ones are V's, and it kind of looked like this. And then I also had a line, and remember, lines kind of, let's just say it looked like this. Okay, now if you were doing this, you would need to kind of look and see, if you did it the first way, how many regions do you kind of see? Well, I see a region, I'll just kind of highlight them so you can see a little bit better. I see a region down here, so I might have to test, do all these points work? That would be one spot to test. A second spot to test would be in here, do the points inside here work? Okay, a third spot to test would be, I'll do it in blue, up here, do these ones work? Okay, and a fourth spot to test is going to be out here and out here. Okay, so you kind of have a lot of spots to test. Now, otherwise, again, if you like doing it the other way better, you could get your graph, and if you had your absolute value first, let's say, and you find out, okay, it works on the inside. Okay, so I'm just going to shade here right away to start with. Okay, and then you graph your line. Okay, I'm just trying to change colors. And then I graph my line, and I find out for my line, it works. I'll do it in green. It works below my line. Okay, so everything below that line. Now you just have to see, well, where is the double shading? Well, I'm going to grab it in blue. It would be this part right inside here. Okay, where I just highlighted in blue. Okay, so that would be the answer to that systems of inequality. So again, you can choose which way works better for you. It's totally up to you. And then just as a quick refresher, the types of graphs that we've done this chapter are lines. Remember, that's if you have like y equals mx plus b. Again, except it'll be with like an inequality. You could have absolute value. So remember, you might have to make a table of points for that. You could have a parabola, but again, it might be an inequality symbol, like x squared plus 7x plus 10. You guys know how to graph those. Those are the three that we have worked with: lines, absolute value, parabolas. All right, if you have questions, please let me know, but you're going to move on to the next thing in the folder.